Hello everyone, my name is Nathan and today it's time for another episode of Scrap Mechanic. In today's video we are gonna build this thing or something similar to it at least. And I know it doesn't look like much at first glance, but let me tell you guys, this thing can actually do more than you would anticipate. Of course it has, standard driving around functionalities, standard steering and everything. But more interestingly, you can see I have 3 buttons at my disposal. The first button is of course retracting our little beautiful wheels, putting them flat on the surface just like that and kind of, tucking them away. And now the second functionality is actually the thing that is going to be the main theme for today's episode, namely the walker functionality. So let's actually expand those legs and get those things into the starting position for our little guy to walk around. And isn't that just a beautiful sight? I love it. Anyways, I just got to that stage and then I started, playing around with the functionality. So if we kind of use that button, you can see it starts to kind of walk around. However, for this test subject, I didn't really finish it because I want to finish it together with you. Let me prepare a bunch of things and we are gonna get this build started. Okay guys, let's get this build started. First of all, I want to start with a little bit of metal right here, just in the center, but we don't want to make it too large. I think something like that will already suffice. And then we are gonna attach a little bit of wood, maybe about 3 blocks or so on each side. There we go, that will do the trick. So this is gonna be our ground platform. Now for this platform, of course, we want our little wheels, and I thought this material here actually looks nice. Yeah, we're gonna go with that, and I'm probably gonna need... I don't know, I'm gonna need some metal blocks too, right? Then we are also gonna need a little bit of suspension, we're gonna need a wheel, and that is about it, I would say. So let's start right here, right off the bat. However, let me think this through. I do want to be able to fold in the wheels, just like we've done with the other thing over there. So in order to be able to do that, I think we need to start with something like that. Add a bearing right here, then we can add this thing here. Then we're gonna take the curve right there, back to this point, and here I believe we can add the second bearing. So right now we would be able to fold this down, which is good. Then we also need the wheel, which by default is gonna face this way, but it can also turn around. Right, so let's continue with the next curve right here. I think we can do something like this. And since this is going to be the front, we are yet gonna need another thing here in order to be able to steer it with the driving seat. And then we are gonna attach a metal block onto which we are gonna place the suspension, and then of course another metal block with a bearing, and finally the wheel attached to it. Now theoretically this should work out. What we also should install is maybe the driver's seat. Where the heck is that thing? Right here. Then we are also definitely gonna need a controller and probably a button. But let's first of all place the seat. We're gonna do that right here. Yeah, that seems about right. Now we want to hook up the steering bearing, which is this one, and we want to turn it around because the front wheels always steer the wrong way first. And we want to install a controller. I'm gonna do this right behind here. Let's see that we can get the interface towards the front. Yeah, that seems about right. I'm actually gonna raise up the seat by 1 block. So we need to do something like this. I believe this is the length of the seat. Place it right there. Oh, no, that's wrong. We need to expand this even more. There we go. This should do the trick. Yes, beautiful. 1 more block in the front. Like so, and the seat is elevated. Great, now we need to hook up the controller to this bearing first of all, then to this one here second of all. Yes, and this one should be hooked up to the steering bearing and turn around. And last but not least, we need to hook this up to an engine. So an engine is what we need next. Let's go with a gas engine as per usual, and we want to kind of plot this halfway into the thing here. Let's see if we can achieve that. Yes, how does that look? Not too shabby at all. We're gonna pump this up to about 3, and then we want to hook up the driver's seat to the engine and the engine to the actual wheel. Come on, let me do that. Yeah, there we go. Okay, great. Now let's actually get rid of this thing here so that we can figure out the initial state this thing should be in. The standard stage is gonna be the stage we have it in right here. So the only thing we have to turn is this baby here. So I'm going to change this around, and I also want to change this around. So they will both be turning into the right direction. And now we want to have a look into our controller and rotate number 1 90 degrees. Let's see, we want to do that by default. There we go. Okay, so now if we press a button, which we still have to install, the button we are gonna have right here, hook this up to that baby. If we press the button, we want to rotate number 1 minus 90 degrees, and number 2 should also be 90 or something. I don't know. Let's just press the button and say this is going to go minus 90 degrees. So it's going up, and then... Oh, did I leave enough space? Yes, I think I did. So now number 2 should be plus 90. Let's check that out. Plus 90. There we go. And we are on our wheels. So that seemed to work out. And we can even steer this thing, and we can use it, you know, almost to drive around. Now we are gonna hook this up to our little seat here so that I can use number 1, to wheel it in. Now, of course, it might be still a little bit fast. We can avoid things like that. And also, once we have attached all of the wheels, which I'm actually gonna do right now, it should also be a little bit more stable. So give me just 1 second in order to repeat this for all the wheels. And there we go, all of the wheels are placed. I have actually made a mistake that I need to point out, namely I made the 90 degrees angle right here for the second bearing, which is wrong. I need to wait and do it actually right here. So first we are gonna rotate these guys all the way down or all the way up, because in the default position they are down, and once they are up we are gonna rotate down the wheel. So let me just actually show you that they are going into their default position, then we press the button, then first they go up and after that they fold down. So there we go, now we have our wheels attached, and we still have a bunch of issues here. Not all of the wheels are turning into the correct direction, and there we go. I think now it is fixed, and we should also be able to drive around. Very, very nice. Okay, let's get to the second stage of the build, which is the walker functionality. And yes, of course, that's what we have all been waiting for. Now what's up with the frame rate suddenly? Okay, there we go. That feels much better. Now we are gonna put this again onto here, and we're gonna build the things in their default position. Now for the legs, I decided to go with these pipes just because they are not very heavy and they actually fulfill all of the purposes that I need them to fulfill. So we need all of the pipes. What else do we need? We need bearings, possibly metal blocks. And then also we are gonna need a shoe. Yes, of course. We want to walk on shoes naturally. Anyways, let's get this thing started. I believe I can start right here at the corner, but I actually think I want to build out at least one more block, maybe something like that. And then we can attach a pipe like so. And here is where we want our first bearing to be. So first of all, I want to build the legs in a way so that they are kind of folded in nicely. Most of the walker designs that you see start with the legs in their default position, but we don't want that. We want them to be tucked away nicely. So this is our first bearing that will dictate the normal state of the tucked in legs and also make them go into their default position. And then after that we want to go up one more block, just like that, and have another bearing on top of it. Now I'm gonna build the legs outwards in their default position, but we are gonna fold them back in like so, if you can follow my drift. So here is gonna be the leg, and we want to fold it back in, and this is the bearing we need in order to do so. Okay, so now we have the two bearings that are able to kind of tuck this thing away, and now comes the first bearing that is going to be responsible for the actual leg. So this is going to be like the hip bearing, like where the hips of the leg are. Then we want to go up, I believe, and just have one block like so. So this is going to be like the upper leg. And on top of that, we want to take another curve, and now we need actually another steering bearing. So this bearing again is going to be responsible to put it in the default position of the walking functionality and also tuck it away. So we have 3 bearings responsible for that already, and we have the hip bearing. Now of course we need the knee bearing, so we need to attach another bearing just like that. This is going to be responsible for the knee functionality, and then we want to go down again using only pipes, and at the bottom right here we need a shoe. Now you could go with another bearing right here, but I don't think it is actually necessary. Oh my gosh, can I do this? Yeah, there we go. Here we have the shoe. Great. Okay, now we only need to make this go into a default position, and for that, yes, we need a controller. So let's do this. Controller and button actually. The controller for this, I think I'm just gonna put into here. Yeah, somewhat like this. And now we want to hook it up to stuff. We want to hook it up to this first bearing here, which is, I call this the default position bearing. Then here we have another default position bearing, and the third default position bearing is this one right here. Okay, now let's think this through. First of all, this probably needs to go into the other direction, and we want to start with a minus 180 degrees angle, and we probably also need to free up some space here. So that would be the bearing number 2, by default minus 180. Okay, let's do this. Now we can actually remove this and already see stuff working. Oh no, that didn't work out because of course the actual joints of the legs are not hooked up to a controller. Where do we want to have this controller? I don't want it right here because otherwise it's not going to be very overviewish. So I'm guessing we are going to have this controller here. This controller is going to be responsible for moving the actual legs once we have them in position. But oh geez, that just gave my frame rate a little kill here. But as soon as we have hooked up this guy right there, yeah, we should be good. Oh, now actually I need to take away a little bit from here. No, that worked out because I've already placed the block. Now obviously we also need a switch for this guy, and for now I'm just gonna have the switch right here and hook it up to this controller. Okay, so in order to expand the legs, we want to turn around bearing number 2 180 degrees, and after that we shall look. So number 2 180 degrees, let's actually click that button. There we go. Okay, next up we have bearing number 1. This should turn around also 180 degrees, but into this direction. So let's also do that. Number 1 180 degrees, and then this should happen. Great. Now we only need to turn around bearing number 3, probably into this direction. It's already right. So let's try to, oh no, I cannot reach the controller. Maybe I can reach it from down below. Yeah, there we go. So also 180 degrees. Let's see what happens there. Yeah, great. So now we can actually fold in the leg. Oh no, this should not happen all at once. So bearing number 2 should happen first, and then the other 2 bearings should go off. Something like this. Let's test this out again. It goes out and folds up. Okay, that is great, but this is not really a default position. We need to adjust the angle slightly. And I think the angle we want to go is like 135 degrees. I'm not entirely sure. Let's do it a little bit slower. There we go. Click the button. It's folding out and going into a, you know, more or less default position for a leg. Yeah, that's actually great. So I'm going to rinse and repeat that for all 4 legs. I'm gonna do the exact same thing for all of them, except of course that I mirror all the angles and everything, but let's actually skip this part so that we can go ahead to the programming part of the walking. Okay, there we go guys. I took myself the liberty of already hooking up one additional leg. Now important is we did this together, this one, the front left leg. We have to do the same measurements for the leg on the opposite side diagonally, because in the end we will be moving those 2 legs together, and we will also be moving the front right and the left back leg together. And this way I hope we will get some kind of a walking functionality going. So now that we have done the front left and the right back leg, we want to do the right front and the left back. So let's start with that. I think, yeah, we have to continue from here. I want to hook this up first, and then this one, and last but not least this one, all of these for the starting position. And I also want these to rotate the right direction. So just to keep with my main strategy, I want this to turn outside. So this is already good. I also want to turn this outside like so. So it will be turning like so towards the outside, if you catch my drift. And the same thing right here, we want to turn it in a way so that it turns towards the outside. Or maybe this one, the inside, I don't know. But as you can see, we have the measurements right here. We now want to do it for 7, 8 and 9, which are the things we just added. And that reminds me, we don't have enough spots. So maybe we should do this with a different controller, really. Yeah, I think that might be a good idea. I want to unhook those guys like so, and we want to add an additional controller right next to this one because they kind of do the same thing. And there we go. And now we use this second controller to hook up all of these guys, and things are gonna be a little bit more overviewish, I would say. So let's make sure they are turning into the right direction. I think they are. So number 2, we want to have a default of -80, then plus 180. I said -80, but you know what I meant. And then here we want to actually have a different angle. I think 225 is gonna give us the desired results. I'm not quite sure. We will have to test that. And then last but not least, we want to hook up the walking functionality to our main thingy-majingy here. Yeah, this guy is responsible for all of the walking animations, so we have to hook all of these bearings that are left up. And I should also note myself down which bearings are responsible for which leg. But it should be easy. 1 and 2 are for the left front, 3 and 4 are for the right back, 5 and 6 will be for the right front, and last but not least 7 and 8 for the left back. So before I repeat this off camera for the last leg, let's quickly test if these settings are working. I want to remove my lift. There we go. So the wheel is already folding back correctly. It seems all of the wheels are doing that. So let's press the button and see. No, that's not the button. Did I install a button? No, not really. We have to have a button for both of these guys. So this button is gonna activate this controller and this one at the same time. Yeah, it is hooked up to both of those things. So let's see if the wheels are... No, whoa! Okay, this thing didn't turn around the right way. Did you see that? Yeah, we have to switch this baby around. There we go. Yes, but overall, is it facing the correct way? I think so, actually. Let's get this back onto the lift, remove the lift, get it in its default position. And now we are gonna press this button again, but we have to do it slower, right? So this is already set to slow. We have to set this to slow as well. Well, not so slow, but you know, slower. Yeah, there we go. This is better. And you can see, even though it is a little bit wonky because I haven't installed the last leg, but the front leg right here and the back leg. Oh no, they actually don't have the correct angle. Oh yeah, I will have to mess around a little bit with it. So right now the back leg right here should also have the same angle as this one. But there we go. Let me finish that quickly, and once I get them into the correct starting position, we go on from there. Okay guys, back we are. So first of all, I'm gonna give you a little demonstration what we are gonna do. It's still a little bit wonky, but you know, the concept is working. And after I've shown you everything, I will delete everything that I have in the control right now, and we are gonna reprogram it together so you can kind of understand what is happening. So first of all, let's hop into here and actually expand our little beautiful legs. There we go. I also want to go ahead and set my controller to repeat mode. So that is going to be very useful in order to make this happen. I already have my switch on the number 3 in my hotbar. So let's go ahead and try to kind of walk forwards. And there we go. This is my little kind of wonky animation here. However, I mean, it is working. We are not going backwards like in a lot of designs. And we can go forwards. Of course, we still will have to install a contraption in order to change the direction, but that should be easy enough. However, there we go. Once we have used this thing, we need to get it to a resting position, and then we need to remove the repeat mode. Otherwise, it's not gonna get into the default position, and it's just kind of gonna hop around just, you know, a little bit until it has the default position, and then we can actually tuck it in nicely once again and use our wheels to continue driving. And this is exactly what I wanted to have. However, as I said, let me quickly get rid of everything we have in the controller. It is actually a lot, but it is easy to understand. Be right back. Okay, so the controller is reset. Let's have a proper look at this. What we first want to happen is that this leg right here and this one here are going into the position this one is in right now. And this will of course cause the contraption to kind of go up a little bit and move into the forwards direction. You know, it kind of keeps standing on this position, but moving the entire body forwards. Now maybe I should first explain which leg is which. So we have bearing number 1 and 2 for the front left leg, bearing number 3 and 4 for the back right, bearing number 5 and 6 for the front right, and bearing number 7 and 8 for the back left. So what we want to influence first is the front right, which is 5 and 6, and the back left, which is 7 and 8. So let's go ahead and search for those. 5 and 6, we want to set 5 to 90 degrees, 6 to minus 90 degrees. And rinse and repeat that for 7 and 8, of course. Now I set the bearings in a way so they all go into this direction. So all the hip bearings and all the knee bearings are all turning into this direction, no matter on which leg they are. And this way I can have the same settings for each leg. Okay, so let's see this happen. We are going to click this button and you can see we have been going a little bit forwards. However, those legs right here are now in a bad position, and if we turn them just around 90 degrees and 90 as we did with the other one, we are actually going backwards again. So we cannot do that. We have to take other measurements. Let's move backwards a little bit. The measurements we have to take is we want to kind of move this leg a little bit backwards, so it even helps with the forwards position. So if we rotate this anti-clockwise, and then we want to go a little bit extreme, a little bit up here, and then rotate this thing around so we can get it to the front. We want to get it into this position, right? But without touching the ground. So we are kind of making a little extreme knee position, rotating this forward and then bringing the leg back down. So let's actually try to achieve that. We need to do that with number 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1 being the hip, 2 being the knee. Okay, so for the front left leg, number 1 and 2, we want the knee bone to do this motion. So we are going to go 150 degrees right here into the positive direction. Then after the knee is kind of angled, we also want to move the hip bearing. And this one we are going to move 120 degrees into the minus direction. After this has happened, we can go into the normal setting. So remember, it was minus 90 plus 90. And now we already have a certain angle, so we have to calculate that in. So we need to go an additional 30 degrees right here in order to get to minus 90. Can you see that? So instead of going directly to minus 90, we first go to minus 120 and then to minus 90. And this way we avoid touching the ground and going backwards again. And we have to do the same thing right here. We are going into the final position, so we have to calculate minus 60 from 150 in order to get to this 90 degrees angle. Okay, let's do the same thing right here. Here we want to go minus 20, then plus 150, and leave this one free, minus 60 and plus 30. There we go. So now we should already have kind of the first motion. Let's actually click that button and see. Yeah, there we go. And now we are in the final position, and now of course we can rinse and repeat everything just with the other legs until we have completed a full cycle. So let's actually move backwards and hopefully... Oh! Okay, everything is fine. Don't panic, guys. Okay, let's try to rinse and repeat that for all the other things. So here we have completed this motion. So the next thing naturally would be to mirror the action on this level. So since it is opposite, we can now go plus 90 right here, minus 90, just like with the other one. No, not 75, it is 90, plus 90, and minus 90. If you remember, we had that right here for number 5 to 8. To start off the action. Then at the same time this happens, we have set those guys to plus 150, which are the knee bones. So we have to do the same thing with the other guys. Here we have 5 and 6. 6 is the knee bearing. So right here where we have the 90 degrees, we also want to go, what was that? Plus 150. Yeah, plus 150. And we want to do the same thing for the knee bearing with number 8. 150, there we go. Then for the hip bone, if you remember, we went minus 120 degrees, then we added 30 degrees and minus 60 for the knee bearing. So let's do the same thing right here. We want to go minus 120 right here and here, then plus 30 and minus 60, minus 60. And there we go. And then we have completed a full cycle. Let's actually test this out. We should be moving one step, then one more step, and we have completed the cycle and are kind of in the default position. Now the problem, of course, with the switch is that we are actually going to reverse the entire action. So we are kind of moving backwards. Maybe we can actually do something about that with a button. And oh no, this time we weren't as lucky. So we have to set it up newly. But let me actually try this quickly. We want to utilize a button right here, hook this up to there and hook this up to our seat. There we go. And now I should be able to move around. No, it has the same effect. And if I release the button, we are moving backwards. So we will have to kind of do it in a cycle, to be honest with you. You just have to enable this guy. But if you want to retract them again, you have to disable the cycle mode. However, to wrap up the episode, let's quickly think about the rotation mechanism. I think I'm just going to attach something here in the middle that will be able to lift us up and then kind of rotate us around. Let me quickly do that, and once this contraption is completed, I'll be right back. Alright guys, there we go. This is the final clip, and I think we can leave it at that for the final result. It is not perfect by far, but I think I have thought about this enough for one day. However, let me show you what actually happened. I mean, this visual system, guys, I mean, it is a great idea, but for projects like this, it is an impossibility. I cannot even go ahead and explain you how I did it. Anyways, what I did is I hooked up an electric engine to a bearing right on top of here, as you can see, which is turning around this entire thing. This thing can be pulled down and is kind of standing on the ground, therefore turning around the entire thing. At least that is the intention. So let's try all the functionalities first. So right off the bat, I can see that we might have a slight issue. Yeah, I cannot really do it this way, so I will have to come up with something else. But the proof of concept is still gonna be valid. So we are gonna use our little legs, and now if we want to, we can of course walk forwards, just, you know, like we did before. However, now whoa, okay, that was not intended. However, what we now also can do is lower down this little pillar structure, and it will kind of, you know, make a stand. And then I can use the number 5 hotbar in order to kind of rotate around. You get my basic drift. I'm sure you could do this a little bit more, you know, delicately, but it kind of works, right? We just have to get it into a nice position. There we go. And then we use number 4 again in order to fold it up. Beautiful. And now we can keep on walking. I love it. But there we go, guys. This has been it for today's episode. I sure hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to leave down your likes and suggestions for the next episode. Comments are always welcome and appreciated. If you want to see more Scrap Mechanic, also consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great time and see you soon. Bye bye.